think that the textbook example for me was IBM. Again, had a degree in IT, was working at IBM and leading an organization of sales and account managers. And while I was always in the top 10% of sales leaders, I wasn't getting promoted. And I got a little pissed off and you're young and you're cocky. And I told my boss, well, if you don't promote me in 3 months, I'll promote myself. And he said, sure, kid. And 3 months later, I resigned and took a job somewhere else. But the learning was one of my workers, who was an older gentleman, he said, Keith, can I tell you why you didn't get promoted at Walmart? At IBM. I said, why? He said, you were a bull in a china shop. You got great results, but you abused your people. You didn't get along with finance. You didn't get along. It was all about you, your team, and winning. And that's not the culture here. And he says, you're never going to be successful anywhere if you just continue to be this corporate bully and this bull in the china shop. And that stung. That hurt, but that was my first aha of really the work is about people, it's through people, and respect for the individual really matters.
Why do you think you were the bull in the china shop at that point? Was it just youth? Was it what were you trying to prove by being angry, I suppose?
So here's what it was. It was less about being angry, more about emulating the leaders who had come before me. So I had a lot of leaders who were that Theory X, military, hardcore, rough and tumble leadership. And so I thought that's what success looked like. You couple that with the fact that I was typically younger than the people that I was leading. And so somehow I felt I had to beat my chest to get them to understand. And so it was really, I would call it the immaturity of youth that led me down that path. And fortunately, before I got to 30, I realized I had a problem and began to address it.
How do you do that? How do you look inward and see? Because there's plenty of managers out there who are just still pounding their heads against stuff. How do you look internally and see what you're doing wrong?
There's a couple ways. I was fortunate enough to a company hired an executive coach to work with me to help me identify those blind spots and why they were there because they were coming from something. And it could have been everything from some childhood issue I had with trauma of not being listened to or not being heard to the imposter syndrome of feeling like, wow, do I really belong here? I'm here with these people from Harvard and Yale. And so it was overcompensating. And once I realized that would hinder me from my ultimate plans to be a C-level leader, I had to take the time to look in the mirror and say, okay, Keith, some of this you're doing to yourself. And it was humbling, but I'm glad I went through the process.